Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolors. Thank you for joining me in another painting demo. Today I want to share with you the process of this small painting of blueberries. So I went to this blueberry farm with my family and some friends the other day, and I end up taking some photos of the blueberries because blueberry under the sun looks really pretty. The color looks very nice. So I took some photos and decided to paint them. The farm itself doesn't really have interesting scenery for me to paint, but these blueberries are very nice. So when you are visiting some places, even if the overall scenery isn't really attractive, isn't really suitable for painting, there might always be something, even something small, that can be a good subject to paint. So never stop looking. So here I start with a typical drawing. There is countless leaf in the background, so I decided not to focus on any of that. Couple leaves overlapping the blueberry, and that's about it. The main characters are still the blueberry, and specifically the couple ones on the left. So still life isn't something that I paint a lot, but I think it's good to venture out sometime and try something a little bit different. The overall approach and the process is still the same though. Understanding the lighting and the basic structure and form is still very important. Arguably more important than still life. So I finished the drawing and I decided to wet the whole paper, the area that I'm going to paint anyways, because I want a soft edge around to give this vignette feel. I use a paper that's a little bit big so I can crop later if I need to. So I start off with the first wash, which is the color of the light, and this painting is filled with light. Since it's lit by the sun, things are very bright and vibrant. So I start mixing the light green color and the light purple color that's going to be for the blueberry. So I start off painting the color of blueberries, save a little bit of the highlight here and there, but for the most part you can just paint them over. And because I painted wet on wet, some of the color will spread out naturally. Let the color blend. Since this is the first wash, it doesn't really matter. Even if the color blend in a way that you are not intended for, that's the beauty of watercolor. Let it blend and let it flow. We can always tighten up later in the second wash. So the paper dry relatively quick because of the recent weather. It's summertime, so it's getting hotter and things are drying a lot faster. It's a lot drier. But I re-wet the edges so I can paint the green light and it will have a softer edge. So the most important thing for the first wash is to keep it clean. Don't think about detail too much. We are only here to establish the basic color of the light, and that's about it. So before the wash is drying, I added just a little bit more color here and there just to make it look a little bit more interesting. But that's it for the first wash. It's just a very light color, and this is the light value. So in the value study, that's just the white paper. So as you can see, I did a very quick and rough value study. This helps me to keep the subject simple and give me a solid plan. So I'm starting to mix some color for the second wash. The color is very simple in this one. It's just darker purple and a darker green, and that's about it. And within that purple and green, we got a little bit of variation. Some purple is a little bit redder, some purple is a little bit bluer. So I started to paint the blueberry. So preserve the light that we already have. This wash, the second wash, we start to become a little bit more careful because there are some distinct edges between light and the dark. So I paint the head of the blueberry while it is still wet, so it is a nice and soft detail there. But we can always come back in and start to paint some more later And these blueberries will be darkened later as well, because after they're dry, they are going to be a lot lighter. And I'm painting the middle value. So if you squint your eyes, the middle value on the blueberry should be around the same as the leaf. And that's the point of this wash. I just want to paint the middle value, so I will paint the dark value later. So painting a little bit of background. Like I said, there's a lot of details in the background, so I keep it to the minimum. And some of the light and the dark in the background, I treat them mostly just like graphics. We don't always have to identify and interpret everything that we see. If it's not the focus of the painting, sometimes we can just loosely indicate those. Switching to a slightly smaller brush and render another blueberries a little bit more in the back. So lately you might notice my update time is a little bit different. Before it's mostly Wednesday because I called it Watercolor Wednesday, but I'm very busy lately, so things got pushed back a little bit. So I apologize for the delay, but I will try to keep one video a week. So I soften this edge. So there's an important difference between these two edges. One is the soft edge of the light and dark transition, the core shadow, and the other is the cast shadow, which is a shadow caused by something blocking the light from above. So the lighting has no transition, it's directly cut off. So look at this blueberry transition from green to purple because it's on its way to ripe. So that's why I feel it's a very, very beautiful piece to do it in watercolor, because watercolor is the medium that you can very naturally blend in two colors and let them just do its work and blending for you instead of trying to hand blend those like any other medium. And the surface quality of blueberry is actually not that shiny. It has a little bit of this matte quality to it. And which is the same thing for watercolor. When watercolor is dry, it's not shiny, it's matte surface. So I feel like this simple little cute subject is actually very suitable for watercolor. So after painting some of those blueberries, I quickly finished the second wash because again, the focus is some of the purple blueberry there. And the background and even some of the greener blueberries are not the focus of the painting. So I just keep them simple. So it's the same thing. After I did the wash, I come back in wet onto wet just to indicate a little bit of the detail. This blueberry in the bottom is a little bit too dark, so I just wet it and press it out with a paper towel. This will work if the wash is still wet. So there's still a little bit of grace period if you made a mistake. So reference to my value study. So we're getting ready to paint our third wash, which is the dark. So we start with the main blueberry again. So we go over that dark area again just to make it a little bit darker. And the reason I want to make it darker is to create more contrast because that is the focus of the painting and that need to pop out a little bit more. And to separate that with some of the darker leaves, we need to make this main blueberries a little bit darker. And again, they will become a little bit lighter once they dry. So I can always come back in and make the head of the blueberry even darker if I need to add some details. Like what I'm doing right now, adding a little bit of the darker detail, some contact shadow with some darker paint, darker mixture with the tip of my brush and add those in. So you can probably tell after I darken these blueberries, they pop out a lot more. So in some way, we create this artificial atmosphere, if you will. Because the scenery is so small and close up, You don't really see atmosphere here, but in our painting, we can definitely create a little bit more sense of depths by making some things a little bit loose, making things a little bit more contrasty, push and pull as we need it. So we're pretty much done with the blueberries, and now I am going to paint some darker green. So same thing as the dark on the blueberry, there's some dark shadows behind them, and they're mostly by the leaf casting shadow over each other. And again, I treat the background as simple shapes and graphics. It's very easy to look at those details and got lost in it. And if you try too hard to reproduce those in your painting, you can really lose yourself and start painting too much. So the purpose of those dark for me is to bring out some of the lighter blueberries and the light on the leaves. So it's not so much that we need to render out each and every leaves, it's that we need to create some contrast and negative space for the blueberries to show up. So I re-wet the left side because I don't want the hard cut off edge for those darks. And adding a little bit more green variations here and there. I come back in just to add a little bit colors on the blueberries. Some very few simple strokes. And at this point, you need to ask yourself, do I need more, or this is good as is? So I only added a few more darks and I call this one finished. I crop it out and recompose it a little bit. I hope you like this painting. And even though it's a little bit different, but looking at this painting, painting it reminds me of a good time I picking blueberries with my family. And I think that's the powerful thing about painting, is that you get to enjoy this memory again in a different way. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. I'm Eric from Cafe Watercolor. See you next time.